Hello there. Here we are with the bonus issue for issue 48. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the TD or TIE D Defender. So was most commonly known, the TIE/D Defender is more commonly known as just the TIE Defender. It was a high-performance TIE series starfighter that started its development cycle, and this is the important part, after the destruction of the first Death Star. This was a response to the high success rate of the Rebels' more advanced starfighters against standard Imperial TIE fighters. However, the final version of the new Defender, designed and built by the CNR fleet systems, was not finished or put into production for the Imperial Navy until shortly before the pivotal Battle of Endor. So there you go. All right, so let's look at the dimensions and the details here. So its length was 9.2 meters. Its maximum acceleration was 21 megalights per second. It had a maximum speed of 144 megalights, which is pretty fast. Maximum speed here was 1,680 kilometers per hour, which is very fast. Engines was SFS or P-SZ 9.2 or 9.7 twin ion engines. Holy crap, I don't know why that's hard to say. Had a Class 2 hyperdrive, which was a step up from the standard TIE fighter. So it had a solar ionization reactor, like all TIE fighters. Forward and rear naval decks, deflector shield generators, another upgrade. One of the things that made them so significant. Its armament, it had 4 laser cannons on these wings here, the lower ones, and then it had 2 Borstal NK3 medium ion cannons up here on these. So that too was significant. Let's have a look here. It could carry 4 concussion missiles or 4 proton torpedoes and an optional tractor beam, and it could only hold 1 pilot. So the design represented a significant shift from previous TIE models, as the Starfighter featured hyperdrive deflector shields, allowing it to operate independently of Imperial ships. At the time of its manufacture, it was arguably the most advanced starfighter available due to its speed, agility, and extended firepower. So yeah, it was supposed to be pretty deadly. The battle of Yavin forced the Imperial Navy to rethink its early tactic of swamping its opponents with swarms of cheaper TIE fighters, as these were too easily defeated by the Rebel Alliance X-Wings. Inevitably, this made a strong case for introducing a more flexible starfighter, which, like the Rebel ships it would oppose, would need to include a hyperdrive unit. So let's look at the armament, and this is where it talks about the placement of the weaponry. Had a formidable array of weaponry, was designed to tackle multiple enemy starfighters at the same time as countering other threats. As standard, it had 4 laser cannons on the lower wings, these right here, and 2 ion cannons in the upper wings. These would be set to fire separately, linked, or in 2s or 4s. While 2 sensors provided a constant stream of targeting information, the ship also had 2 launchers below the cockpit, which could be equipped with proton torpedoes, concussion missiles, proton rockets, proton bombs, or Matic pulse warheads. So it was pretty formidable. So it's also important to note that it still did not have life support, so they still had to be in an enclosed suit and all that kind of stuff. But they were equipped with enough supplies for like a week and that kind of stuff. So like I said, it had hyperdrives, and it had shields and all that kind of stuff. So that was important. So one of the things was the pilots that got into the TIE Defender would be only selected from the TIE Interceptor pilots who had flown at least 20 combat missions and survived. Such pilots were already an elite force, but some of those who were selected wondered whether their survival meant that they were the best pilots or just the luckiest. So yeah, that could be a bit of a problem. Despite the cramped size of the capsule and rudimentary facilities allocated to the pilot, the ship was able to carry 65 kilograms of cargo and consumables, which would allow a maximum flight time of a week. Ship's high cost, together with various political factors, kept it from widespread use, and the TIE Defender was only assigned to the most elite pilots in the Imperial Navy. The three-wing design. So, in a departure from the design of the previous TIE models, instead of two parallel wings on either side of the pilot module, the TIE Defender had three wings mounted around the pilot module. The rear superstructure contained an ionization reactor to store and convert solar energy collected from the three panels. The wings themselves appeared similar to those found in the TIE Interceptor and the TIE Avenger. However, the wings on the TIE Defender were angled out instead of in. So if you recall, um, the shape of these wings here, basically if you were to flip these over, that's what the TIE Interceptor and the TIE Avenger look like. The inclusion of a third wing provided an additional solar power to increase the ship's range, and the ship's energy management system was designed to allow the onboard weapons and shields to be charged with minimal loss of power to the propulsion system. One disadvantage of this new design was an aft blind spot, which could be exploited by enemy fighters, maneuverable enough to get behind the Defender. Fortunately, the ship had a pair of forward and rear projecting novel decks, deflector shield generators, another advantage over standard type models, plus a small tractor beam projector that had limited range and could only be used for short time but allowed the pilot to inhibit the mobility of enemy fighters. So in the behind the scenes, the TIE Defender was first seen in the 1994 LucasArts video game Star Wars: The TIE Fighter. Although absent from the follow-up X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, the TIE Defender returned in 1999 Star Wars X-Wing Alliance, where it could be flown in both the single-player campaign. I can't talk. Holy crap. And multiplayer mode. Many of the TIE Defender's specifications changed between the two games. More recently, in 2010, LEGO released its own version of the TIE Defender, which included 6 missile launchers, a minifigure of a pilot, and a cockpit able to rotate as the wings moved. So that's interesting. Battle of Hoth. The earliest Defenders were adapted from prototype TIE Advanced X7s. Fresh from the Sanar Fleet System Research Facility, they were pressed into service at the Battle of Hoth. The result was a rout. Fortunately, eclipsing the Empire's success on the day. Fortunately, eclipsed by the Empire's success of the day. As a small group of Rebel Alliance fighters dubbed the Renegade Squadron sought to escape the Hoth blockade, they wreaked havoc on the two Victory II class Star Destroyers. Responding to the threat, the Imperials deployed the prototypes, even though they lacked many critical systems, including the proper ion engines, making them slower and less well armed than the true TIE Defenders. As a result, the Renegade Squadron destroyed 6 of the prototypes, though the data gathered by Sanar technicians was very useful in the continuing design of the TIE D. There you go. Visiting Ord Mantell, and this one's I'm actually a bit excited for. So, Ord Mantell, it's a mid-rim territory. It's part of the Bright Jewel sector. It's got 15 moons. Its orbiting position is 2. It's in the Selenon Spur and the Entrala route for its trade routes. Physical characteristics: terrestrial, it's 14,000 kilometers in diameter. It's a Type 1 atmosphere, temperate climate standard, mountains, mesas, plains, islands. Major cities is Warport is the capital. Population is 4 billion, and its government is governorship. So let's go ahead and get going on this one. This one, like I said, I thought this was a bit interesting. It's one of the places I've been very excited for because I actually have some stories to share with this one. So, Ord Mantell is the capital bright jewel sector, and is the second planet of the to orbit the blue star Bright Jewel. It's thick. It's got thick clouds, and it gives it a pinkish hue when viewed from space. So that was pretty interesting. I won't go into like how long ago it was discovered and all that kind of stuff, but it was discovered by Corellians, um, which that kind of lays into some of the stuff that is important to note about it. So it's got narrow streets of cities such as Worldport, Freelon, and Savaroia are a melting pot of fringe activity. Open markets sell nearly everything, and nothing is truly illegal on the planet. That is so true. The governor's planetary representatives are no strangers to the illicit activities that happen continuously on Ord Mantell, or to accept bribes to turn a blind eye to them. The Mantellian courts respect the rights of the bounty hunters as they see them as a free market approach to law enforcement. Needless to say, the streets of Ord Mantell's largest cities can be very dangerous indeed. Every landmass on Ord Mantell is dotted with mountain chains, but the population lives on the arid equatorial continents amid the foothills of the mountains and plains. The planet has become the home of many colonist species, commonly known as Mantellians, and no particular species on Ord Mantell represents more than 5% of the total population. Coastal cities include the planet capital Worldport, are uh, constantly inviting and seducing visitors to spend their credits in the casinos at the gambling tables. I've won a few games there. Many of One of many tourist attractions in the annual Blockade Runners Derby, a race through the comet cloud at the periphery of the Bright Jewel system. It's quite the exciting race, I can tell you. The planet's outskirts are much less developed and glamorous, with outreached junkyards, mountains, mines. Farther along the continental shores are small fishing communities which prefer not to be bothered by outlanders. So the junkyards can be very helpful if you have to repair your ship in a hurry, and especially when you don't have that many credits. Years of conflict. The Republic tried to create other trade hubs to rival the success of Ord Mantell, uh, but these worlds could not compete with it even when Ord Mantell turned into a criminal shadow port. By the time of the Clone Wars, the crime syndicate Black Sun operated a large base on Ord Mantell, which became the focus of the Confederate attack launched by Darth Sidious. However, during the years that followed the First Battle of Geonosis, Ord Mantell was most important as one of the planets that the Republic's Grand Army and Navy used as a storage facility, barracks, and fleet support base. Ord Mantell became the headquarters of the Republic's 8th Sector Army. During the Galactic Civil War, the Bright Jewel sector became the capital of Bright Jewel Oversector, which also contained the Yavin system. After the destruction of the first Death Star at Yavin, the Empire tightened its grip on the sector, but Ord Mantell still managed to maintain an appearance of neutrality due to its anything goes attitude. While the Empire feared that Ord Mantell might become a haven for rebel sympathizers, it preferred to blackmail the government and keep an eye on the planet by staging fleet maneuvers in the nearby area, rather than pursue a total subjugation. The Mantellians, however, saw more and more stormtroopers appear in their cities as the Empire gradually built up its ground forces. Ironically, the planet's tolerance for bounty hunters almost played a key role in the course of the rebellion as a dangerous encounter on Ord Mantell persuaded Corellian smuggler Han Solo that he needed to pay his debt to Jabba the Hutt. As a result, Solo had decided to leave the rebels, and it was only due to unexpected circumstances that he lingered at the base on Hoth long enough to be caught up in the Imperial invasion. So, if you recall, that's one of the things that Han says to Leia, that if it wasn't for that bounty hunter that they ran across in Ord Mantell, that's why he realized he needed to go pay Jabba off. So that's why he was actually going to leave. Mantellian Savrips. These things are pretty beastly, let me tell you. Perhaps best known as a powerful holographic piece on the popular game Dejarik, the Savrip is a sentient, though primitive, reptilian species native to Ord Mantell with long necks and elongated arms. Savrips can grow to 4 meters and have tough skin that protects their strong bodies. They live in tribal communities, and because their use of rocks and clubs uh, as weapons hides their true intelligence. The species has unfortunately often fallen victim to slavers and the organizers of gladiatorial games. One famous member of the species was the brawler and gladiator Kalhar, but the savage strength has made it a common symbol used by the military, noble houses, sports teams, and in heraldry. So there we go. That's what the Savrip looks like. So that would be the big monster that kind of claps his hands together after he slammed down the other one in A New Hope. So let's talk about the behind the scenes. The pivotal moment of Empire Strikes Back comes when Han Solo tells Leia why he's leaving Echo Base. And here, this is what I was talking about. Well, the bounty hunter we ran into on Ord Mantell changed my mind. No other mention of the planet that hasn't yet appeared on screen would go on to evoke so many different tales in Star Wars legends. Ord Mantell appeared as an illustration in the first time 1981 comic strip The Bounty Hunter of Ord Mantell by Archie Goodwin and Al Williamson. In this adventure, a bounty hunter named Score sets a trap for Solo and the heroes. Ord Mantell appears once again in the 1983 real-long record Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell, where the bounty hunter is an insectoid named Cypher. Issue 37 of the original Marvel Comics may have depicted the encounter on Ord Mantell as well, but West End Games' solitary adventure Scoundrel's Luck surely brought Han Solo to the planet. Ord Mantell also featured in LucasArts' Shadow of the Empire game, where you can hitch a train as Dash Rendar in order to confront one of the deadly IG-88 assassin droids. Like I said, it was known for its gambling. Ord Mantell's lawlessness helped the rise of thriving gambling in the entertainment industry along the southern coast of the Worldport continent. A series of cities provided all the necessary services for gambling and games. The cities are modern, and the billions of tourists that visit Ord Mantell from the core can expect to find any luxury they're accustomed to in the core. The most famous casino is without a doubt the Lady Fate, but the most professional gamblers can be found in the side streets and alley casinos, such as Chance Cube, Throw Me a Bone, or the Lucky Detoas in the city of Savoria. Several of these casinos have the highest payouts along the Celion spur. So I have a special history with Ord Mantell because early in my smuggling career, I was at Ord Mantell and I was just delivering some crates, just some crates. There may have been some weapons in there and whatnot. And my first officer that I've been around for a few years, I thought we were good buddies. He kind of you know decided he was going to go out on his own. So he shot me Luckily, I didn't die, and I was able to recover. He stole my ship and all of the weapons, to which I was held responsible for. So I had to spend some extra time on Ord Mantell, and luckily, you know, made some friends and was able to take the little bit of credits that I could earn, and went down into uh, the throw me a bone, and was able to turn those profits into enough to get myself a ship. And after that, I had to decide I was going to hunt down that son of a bitch and get back my ship. So yeah, so there you go. That is Ord Mantell. That's why I was very excited about that. Aurebesh. So Aurebesh is the written language of BASIC. So it's comprised of 27 characters or letters, and then it's got numbers 0 through 9, but then it's also got these 8 digraphs, is what they call them. So the digraph, and then it goes to here. These are the 8 digraphs, and so digraphs are basically more or less a combination of two characters. So, as an example, SH or OO, both of which are represented in the Aurebesh glyphs, Shin and Orinth. So here we have Orinth, and here we have Shin. So if you can learn this alphabet, then you can learn to read Aurebesh. So, for instance, if we just translate this, we have a trill, and then we have a herf, and then this one looks to be a resh. No, that can't be a resh. That's got to be, oh, it's an isk. Sorry. And then followed by a senth, right? So basically, that's this. So if we just go through there, we could translate all of this and read what that says. And if you go through that much effort, um, that will actually give you some interesting insight to some of the stuff that you might see in the movies and the TV shows and stuff. So now it doesn't. There's not a lot of overly interesting stuff. The most important thing to note is almost all of the characters have straight lines. There's only a couple that are going to have curved ones, like Forn and Jenth, Nern, Peth. Thought there was at least one other one. Oneth, it indicates that Oneth is, but I don't see anything curved there. It looks all pretty straight to me, and it's always looked straight to me. So, um, yeah, pretty interesting that you could go through and learn all that kind of stuff. Interesting enough, this here, and this is from the Phantom Menace. So this here, if we were to translate that, when Anakin Skywalker was flying an N1 starfighter in the Battle of Naboo, R2-D2 sent him the message below, which reads, "Anakin, turn this ship around and go back homey right away." So yeah, so we could translate that, and now I went through and I was looking at this, and the one problem I have, let's see if we can get this without a glare. So the one problem I have is come on, trying to get this without a glare. There we go. We can do it this way. So we have now some of these characters, if you want to do capitals, what they do is they flip it over for capitals. We don't have special characters or larger symbols for a capital letter. So we have an A and an N, then another A, And this is supposed to be a krill, I believe, but that does not look like a krill to me at all. And then we have the isk, and then we have another N. So um, if you look, this is a krill, and that there, right there, is not a krill. I don't know what that is, but it's definitely not a krill. So if anything, it kind of looks like a length. If I was gonna be a guessing man, but uh, yeah. Anyway, so that was pretty cool. There is a few other written languages. There's the High Galactic alphabet. So Aurebesh is pretty much used by everyone. The High Galactic alphabet is used for all the snobs. So that's important to note. Um, They are far from the only two systems for writing BASIC, although Aurebesh is by far the most widely spread and universal. Other systems are used by the Taiwanese, the Sith, and the Trade Federation, among others. The Naboo use two scripts, the more formal official Futhark and the traditional handwritten Futhork. Traditional or Trade Federation Basics was used for readouts and display screens on board the Neomodian ships operated by the Separatist forces in the Clone Wars, while Futhark appeared in the ships in Naboo. So there we go. And maybe that's what that difference is um, from what uh, R2 sent. Reverse it. Letters, letter forms that look like Aurebesh appear in the original Star Wars trilogy. They were designed by Joe Johnston, but their usage is random, and there is no evidence that the filmmakers applied them with any system in mind. The language was not formalized until 1994 when Stephen Crane, art director of West End Games, developed it for use in battle and role-playing games. Most of the letter forms were based on the beginning of the Return of the Jedi, when Vader's shuttle approached the second Death Star. Uh, Crane sketched out the characters seen on screen, then cleaned them up and standardized their appearance, drawing inspiration from the font Eurostyle extended. The digraphs were based on traditional Norse Futhork runes, which in turn would give their name to the Naboo script. Lucasfilm accepted Crane's formalized new alphabet, and it came to be used more widely in the Star Wars universe. It was even applied retrospectively to the trilogy, uh, transliterating the original characters seen in the movies and elsewhere, produced by only Nonsense, but in later releases of the films, such as the 2004 DVD version of The New Hope. Some fans were digitally, some frames were digitally retouched to have intelligible Aurebesh lettering. In the case of the tractor beam that Obi-Wan Kenobi disables, the readout was changed from Power and Tractor Beam 12, section N2 or N6, or scene N6, to the equivalent in Aurebesh. Later productions including the prequels and animated series, employed Aurebesh more consistently from the start. So this is what would have been changed here for the power and the tractor beams. I'm guessing that's power and tractor beams. Uh, there you go. That concludes everything in this issue. So again, we got the hull completed. We also did some work on some customization stuff, so that's pretty important. Um, the rest of this issue covered a lot of the introduction into painting. So that was kind of important for me to go through, but I won't be employing a lot of it until much later, so we'll get to that when we get to that. So that's everything for issue 48. Next time we'll be talking about issue 49. We're going to get some detail parts, a bunch of screws, some parts to start putting together the framework, and some more of the upper hull plating. So that should be interesting. I'll be interested to see what we'll actually be working on that time. But for now, I'm going to say, may the force be with you always.